is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's tied. He throws. It is.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the Past Our Prime podcast. Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman join me, Scott Johnston, every week to look back at sports from half a century ago. And today, Johnny Bench of the Big Red Machine and Louis Tiante of the Bo Sox are on the cover of SI from 50 years ago. They don't call them the Bo Sox anymore. They do not like that for some reason. Not sure why. But we'll talk with someone who knows an awful lot about that incredible World Series, and he has a lot to say about everything. Bill, Spaceman Lee, to join us. Can't wait for that. But first up, let's get Mark and Bill in here and talk a little bit about this series. Of course, it is remembered for the classic Game 6 when Fisk ended it with that home run off the foul pole. We talk about this pretty frequently. I'm 7. This is a late game. I don't remember it. Mark, do you remember this Game 6 or this World Series in general?
Well, not to date myself, but I was just a few weeks away from turning 16 when this was played. And I remember having the game on my little TV. I had a little black and white TV in my room. And I remember that Fisk game, I had it on and I'd watch it for a little bit and then do something else and watch it for a little bit. But I do remember the screaming the announcers were doing when Fisk hit that homer to end it. Because it like went 12 innings. It was a long game.
Yep. Billy, you have any recollection of it?
No, I didn't really start getting into sports till right around 76.
Okay.
So I may have heard about it, but it wasn't a big deal for me at that time.
Yeah, same here. And my dad was a Red Sox fan, but I didn't live with him. So
yeah, same with my father was a Red Sox fan, but I didn't see him very much, so it wouldn't have mattered.
I was watching baseball in 1968, and I was yelling at the TV when Earl Wilson was getting his butt kicked by the Cardinals in the 68 World Series. And it looked like we were going to lose that series.
Was Hannes Wagner as good as they say? Or...
Right.
Not as good as Ty Cobb.
Time to crack open the scorecard section of the October 20th, 1975 issue of Sports Illustrated. Bill, why don't you lead us off?
It's called Hogging the News. Some boys in Florida, they adopted a pig as a mascot. They didn't want to just play with the pig. They actually wanted to eat it as a main course at their postseason dinner, just some high school athletic kids. But the fans weren't happy about that. They said eating the pig is a terrible idea. It's barbaric, possibly un-American. And they went farther than that. People started to complain to the school, and Principal Donald Linton came under pressure to do something about the pig. So they came up with an idea. State legislators said, hey, why don't we just give them a barbecue so they could spare Big Red? But the reason that the idea fell through is because they said, well, the kids have the pig. They can cook what they want, and we can't stop it because they paid for the pig with their own money. So I think the pig story is not over yet. I think we'll hear more about that in other issues.
Yeah. This is what we call a tease.
Yes, a tease one from the scorecard. There's actually no ending, as it says. Yeah, they had paid for it with their own money, so they could eat it. But let's see. I wonder. Yeah. They just probably hogged that pig up anyhow.
Mark, your turn.
What do these three coaches have in common? In 1975, Colorado head coach Bill Mallory, Michigan head coach Bo Schembechler, and North Carolina state coach Lou Holtz. This is before Arkansas and before Notre Dame. Well, let me explain
both
some
guys.
stuff to you. First of all, Bill Mallory decides to, when he's coaching Colorado, to go for 1 point in a tie against Oklahoma. And instead of gambling for two in an upset win, the kick fails, they lose it, and Mallory locked the press out of the dressing room after the game. Bo Schembechler was criticized after his Wolverines were held to ties by Stanford and Baylor. So he reacted by saying he didn't care what the fans thought. And then Holt saw a jogger running on the track around the football field while his team was practicing. He called the campus police and had the jogger ejected. By the way, the jogger happened to be a math professor at the university. So what do all these three have in common? They were all disciples of Woody Hayes. So, and Woody Hayes was a man not known for his calm disposition.
No.
So
Punch,
what is it? The
punch
apple doesn't
first,
fall far from the
ask
tree?
questions later.
That's right. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, you know?
Yeah. Now for the stat of the week. The Metropolitan Life Insurance Company crunched the numbers and found that baseball players live longer than average men. But the real twist, third baseman, the position I played, outlive everyone else on the diamond. Shortstops, on the other hand, have the shortest careers and the shortest lives. Or as SI put it, if your grandfather was a third baseman, you'd better start showing him more respect. He may outlive you, and he probably can out-hit you. So who knew? Third basemen. Ronnie Sagan with us for
Brooke
quite
Robinson
a while.
lived really long.
Say again?
Brooks Robinson lived like 88 or something like that.
Yeah.
And Mark Belanger didn't live that long.
He did it?
No.
That's
60
sad.
something. 60 something.
What about they said it? Who are we quoting this week, Mark?
Well, there were a lot of good stuff, but I'm going to quote John McKay, the USC head football coach. When they asked him about artificial turf, he said, "We think about it as fuzzy concrete."
You know what is amazing?
Rips your knees up.
That thing is hard.
Is to look back at games from back then and like, see like, Three Rivers Stadium or, Riverfront Stadium and
Veterans Field.
We just grew up watching this and it was like normal, but these guys did basically play on carpeted concrete. I mean, it was insane.
Yeah. And remember this with baseball when guys would hit bouncers, sometimes they'd pop over the head of the shortstop because it was hitting cement underneath that and going up higher.
Right. Bill, you got one?
Yeah, Tony Mason. He's a University of Cincinnati football coach on facing Tulsa with several key players injured. You think I'm not worried? Last night I called my wife Ralph.
Well, maybe her name was Ralph.
Yeah,
it could have been.
True.
Ralphina, yeah.
John Agunga, African witch doctor that we spoke of a couple weeks ago, I think, consulting his baboon bones to determine why the Baltimore Orioles lost the race in the American League East despite his spells. And he says, publicity. They lost because they turned coming to me into a publicity gimmick. Witchcraft works only by stealth. And I mean, that is obviously the first rule of witchcraft. Everybody knows you can't have too much publicity when it comes to witchcraft. It's just common sense.
I knew that. Come on.
Game 1 of the 1975 World Series opened with the Red Sox at their hottest, led by 34-year-old pitcher Louis Tiante against the powerful Reds. Tiante tosses a complete game shutout, his fifth straight win at Fenway. He's gone 36 consecutive innings without allowing an earned run. I mean, Billy, Louis Tiante, people forget, but back then, this guy could deal.
I think it was like what Mark said, that windup he had, I think fooled a lot of players, but it wasn't like he was throwing junk up there. He knew how to pitch. I mean, he did this against the Oakland A's and wasn't in game 1 of the ALCS as well.
Yeah, I think, people think that pitching is almost always, the stuff the pitcher has. But pitchers will tell you that the more they can hide the ball and make it difficult for the batter to pick up the delivery, that's a huge advantage. That's why guys like Dan Quisenberry and
Yeah.
they came from a different angle, their sidearm, and that was definitely some of Louis' success. The win was more than just numbers, it was symbolic. Tiant cheered on Mark by chants of Louis, Louis. Watched
Louis,
proud.
Sing it, Mark.
Louis. Whoa. How's that song go? Away
Louis
we
Louis,
gotta go.
go.
Louis, Louis,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Louis.
I mean, Louis Tiant, I mean, look, think about it. So Tiant has that herky-jerky delivery. I mean, it's kind of like Randy Johnson threw hard, but he was so damn tall that when
Yeah.
the ball left his fingertips, he was halfway to home plate.
Right.
So, a batter gets like a split second to make a decision. So whether it's, your delivery, anything that doesn't allow the hitter to see the ball until the last second makes it impossible to hit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we can't almost realize that these guys are like they're picking up the spin on a baseball that's 90 plus miles per hour, and they're like, oh, this is a slider.
Yeah.
I mean, as someone who has poor vision, I was lucky if I could just see if the ball was coming at me, let alone this. They talk about like Tony Gwynn could see and Ted Williams could see how many stitches were on the ball. I mean, it's just insane. But in game two, it's a rain-soaked Fenway. The Reds rallied late to beat the Red Sox 3-2. Boston left-hander Bill Lee booed the day before for his off-field comments, silenced critics by baffling Cincinnati sluggers with his blooper pitch and holding them to just 4 hits through 8 innings. But then, Billy, what happened?
At a 27-minute rain delay. Now, in today's day, after a 27-minute rain delay, they bring in a different pitcher. Nope, not back then. Bill Lee came right back out there and ended up, getting through the 8th, and he gave up a double to bench in the 9th, and they took him out. But that's amazing that he came back from a rain delay, a 27-minute rain delay, and still pitched.
Yeah.
That
And
would never happen today.
I
No,
mean, it wouldn't matter if there was a rain delay. He wouldn't pitch the 9th.
no.
But I mean, he was dealing only 4 hits,
Yep.
and this whole series was marred by a lot of rain. But Billy, the Reds are up 2-1, and they rally in the 9th,
They do.
and Raleigh Eastwood pitches the 8th inning, and what happens to him in the 9th?
Well, Drago is actually Dick Drago, former Angel, is giving up runs. So he gave up a couple runs, and you'd figure that Raleigh Eastwood is the next batter. There's 2 outs. Raleigh Eastwood comes up. They don't take him out. Raleigh Eastwood makes the last out in the top of the 9th of a World Series game with the Reds now up 3-2. In these days, he would have been out, but no, he came back and pitched the bottom of the 9th and got the win. So not only did he bat in the top of the 9th when there was an opportunity to maybe put in a better hitter, but he also ended up winning the game, and they won 3-2.
The Reds comeback flipped the series, heading back to Riverfront, where they rarely lose, leaving Boston fans trudging into the storm, as Sparky Anderson put it. But over the course of the year, you won't see a better baseball team than the Cincinnati Reds, and that held true tonight in Game 2 at Fenway.
Well, to me, what's remarkable about the series is the amount of close games. Like that first game was 6-0, but it was 0-0 until the bottom of the 7th. And then you've got a 3-2 game, a 6-5 game, a 5-4 game, a 7-6 game, a 4-3 game. I mean, all these games are just nip and tuck, and 2 of them go into extra innings.
Yeah, that's a great. That's, I think, like we said, the Game 6 gets all the pub, but it's because I mean, think of this Game 2. This Game 2 here is a classic, right? It's 2-1. You had this rain delay and all this drama, and I think that each team, I think the Reds outscored them by like a run for the series or something.
Right. It was Boston scored 30 runs, Cincinnati 29.
Wow.
Boston had 60 hits. The Reds had 59. The difference actually is the Red Sox committed 6 errors and the Reds 2.
Those lineups were loaded. Looking back, these are some of the greatest players to ever play in the game on these teams.
Joining us now is the man who started Game 2 and Game 7 of this series. In both games, he left the game with the lead, and he got a no decision in both of them, and the Sox ended up losing both those games. What could have been, right? In 1975, Bill Lee won 17 games for the Red Sox, the third straight season he won 17. That year, he threw 4 shutouts, pitched 260 innings, which was about 20 fewer than he had the 2 years prior. Had 17 complete games, was in the prime of his career, and a part of a World Series that put the word classic in Fall Classic. And Bill Lee joins us now from his farm in Vermont. And Bill, tell me once again, how many acres you got up there?
I got 14, and I'm surrounded by my wine partner, Jeff Whitman, who makes red wine in Napa and works for Pearl Jam. He does the biography for Eddie Vedder and does all the photography. He bought 47 around me to surround me and protect me like the liner of a football helmet.
Wow. I mean, just once, the people you know, we could do a Ken Burns documentary with you, but we'll only keep you for about an hour or so. But thanks for coming on with us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I'm beautiful fall day in Craftsbury, peak foliage, a little warm front. We've had rain on, off and on, maybe a thunder shower late, a strange last 3 years up here weather-wise, but I think the whole planet could say the same thing.
No question. Yeah. Hey, Bill, October of 1975, Reds and Red Sox, and you're right in the middle of it. Game 2, up 2-1, going to the ninth over that lineup, the big red machine, and you are pitching the way you pitch, Mr. Changeup, but it slips away. Tell me about the end of that frustrating Game 2.
Wow. Well, it all happened when Henry Kissinger came in during the rain delay and sat on our table, and they kicked us out. His wife was taller than him. You know, he looked like Toulouse-Lautrec. And I was so upset. And the funny thing is, I went back out after the rain delay in the 7th. I threw the 8th inning. I got 3 outs on, I think, 5 pitches. I gave up a hit, and all of them were hit hard except for Redmond's. I threw him a changeup, and he popped up foul. We got him out. There's no way in ever that I go out and throw the 9th inning after what I saw I had. But they sent me back out to face bench Perez and Foster. That doesn't happen. Chapman wasn't showing up, but we had another guy named Julio Moret who had not thrown in a long time. If they bring Moret in there, we ain't having this conversation because I'm president instead of Bill Clinton.
Yeah, they score 2 in the 9th after you give up, like you said, the leadoff double to bench, and you lose that. So now the series.
It was a fastball, but it wasn't really fast. It was up, and he said before that in the rain delay, he said to Gowdy and that second baseman from New York, he said that his shoulder was bothering him. He was going to hit me to right field, you know, and 43 million Americans heard that. Not one of them let me know.
It really sets the tone for an incredible series. Of course, Game 6, the most famous World Series game of all time. Red Sox win. We'll get into that in a little bit, but you get the start in Game 7, all the momentum. And once again, you are pitching well. You're up 3-0 in the 6th. And take us through what happens with the rest of that one.
Well, if you listen to it, I saw the thing. It got extremely quiet. Everything got quiet. You can hear Garagiola, and they're saying, you know, you can hear. It's amazing. You know, it's like everybody was sitting on their hands. And I get into trouble. I get benched on a changeup to hit a ground ball to short. They had moved Doyle, and it was Zimmer, I know for a fact, moved Doyle away because in Game 2 he hit me to right field. So he got him away from second. Doyle was late covering. He leaped in the air. He threw it away. Yastrzemski stretched too soon, and it went over his head, you know. And if Don Clendenin had been playing first, he would have gone up, got it, and got back on the bed before bench. Then I don't face Perez until the next inning. And but I shouldn't have been there. There should never have been Game 7. We should have won it on Fisk's home run in Game 6 because I should have won Game 2. And that's how I look at it, and I'll always look at it that way.
It seems like it sticks with you a lot. What is it that frustrates you so much now, looking back
what
then?
Sticks with me is 1972 sticks with me. 72, we go out in 71, I'm 9-2. I've had a great, I'm reliever of the year, 2.75 ERA. Eddie Casco does not give me the ball in spring training. He does not let me pitch because I wore a T-shirt with a Rolling Stones tongue on it that said "Lick Dick" in 72. So my politics has always betrayed me with my management. I'm a union guy. I was owned by Tom Yaki, but I worked for Marvin Miller.
So I know you mentioned him a little bit. What was the relationship then? Because you mentioned a little bit about Don Zimmer. What was your relationship with him back in those days?
It was rotten. It was terrible. He had all of them. I mean, they're all friends. What was his name? He was with the Chicago White Sox, went to Pittsburgh. They all got together. They hated my politics. They hated me. They hated Californians. They called us the lands of fruits and nuts, nothing but a bunch of fags out there and everything else, and they didn't look how they treated the guys from Oakland. Look at Frank Robinson. He was the first guy to really get a job, but he was hard-nosed. They was tough, but we were a bunch of what did Billy Martin say when he gave me the dead mackerel in the purse after the brawl with Nettles? He came and gave it to Tommy Clements. He comes in the locker. He gives me this paper bag. There's 2 dead mackerel in it, and it says, "Put this in your purse, you California fag." And that's from Billy Martin.
Who was from California.
Wow.
Exactly.
I know. He's from California, and he's a punk. I always said, if you meet Billy Martin, don't have your hands in your pockets and don't have your arms crossed. And that's how it goes. And that's how I've been. How do you, hey, listen to this. 1970, I get traded after the 78 season. Zimmer benches me. We got a 14-game lead on the Yankees. He does not pitch me except in the massacre. In the massacre, you look up my stats. I threw about 9 1/3 innings in relief, gave up 1 run, a home run to Piniella, and we end up losing by 1 game to the Yankees. There had been no Bucky Dent. We go in it in 79. We could have won it in 72, 73, 74. They had 74. They had Freddie Lynn and Jim Rice. Didn't play him when they brought him up. We were tied or 1 game ahead of Baltimore when they brought him up in September. Look it up.
Boy, but tell us how you really feel.
Oh, I get mad. You want to get me mad?
No. We don't want to get you mad. Okay, so hopefully this doesn't get you mad, but you had mentioned 72 a little earlier. And I grew up a Tigers fan. And 72 was so weird.
You know why you guys won it? You know why? A guy named Woody Fryman. Woody Fryman won it for you.
Yep. Yeah. But my question to you was, that was the year they had the strike at the beginning of the year. So or the lockout. So the first, 2 weeks of the season's gone. So the Tigers actually played 1 more game than the Red Sox. It was the weirdest season ever.
They won by a half a game.
And didn't you guys play each other at the end of the season?
You want to know something? Look, you want to see something amazing? You watch the first game opening day against Mickey Lolich in Detroit. Harper gets a base hit, steals second. Aparicio drives him in. Yastrzemski hits a ball in the gap between Stanley and K-line, and Aparicio slips on a wet, rainy, soggy day on third base, and Yastrzemski with that big frickin' nose runs him down at third, and now we don't score again. We get beat by 1 run. The next to the last game of the season, when you cinched it, he gets a base hit, steals second. Aparicio drives him in. Yastrzemski does it again off of Lolich, and guess what? Aparicio slips at third again. You look it up. You cannot believe what happened. And if he pitches me at all during that season, I had not 1 start. I ended up 7-4. The year before, I was 9-2. Pasco, because I wore that T-shirt, is the reason why Detroit won the pennant. But guess what? Oakland beat him anyway.
Yeah, and Scott is an A's fan, so he liked that. But you come from a background of athletes, and I know you told the story that you weren't even the best athlete in your family.
Oh, hell no, my brother was better than me, but he was a little diminutive, and he run a 9.800. He threw harder than I did. You know, he was a stunt double in the Hollywood movie, Kurt Russell, The World's Greatest Athlete. You can see my brother in that movie substituting for every event for Kurt Russell. That's a Disney movie. I was raised by Disney. You know, I was raised by Hollywood. My mother loved Hollywood. She had all the autographs of all the people. My dad met my mother at Grauman's Chinese Theater and that chocolate shop that was right next to it, Brown's Chocolate, I think it was called. And I'm a Hollywood boy. My mom and dad are Hollywood Glendale and Hollywood. You know, my grandfather worked for Gilmore Gas, which became Mobil Gas. You know, he was a lion tamer. I had one grandfather a lion tamer and the other one a crop duster. I was raised by crazy freaking people.
and look at the product of that.
Exactly.
Tell me about it on spades.
On the cover of this issue of SI, Bill, are two people that you really enjoyed and respected: Louis Tiante, your teammate, and Johnny Bench of the Reds. El Tiante passed almost a year ago. Tell us about your friend.
Well, I did the eulogy for his funeral. It was in Milton, and I didn't go because I knew it was going to be a Zoom thing. So I did a Zoom thing, and I'll tell you what I said. But Louis and I were the best friends, and I love Cubans. Tony Perez, I love Tony Perez. I love his son, Eduardo Perez. I love Diego Segui. All the Cubans I known, and I go there and I play. And I made a documentary called Spaceman, A Baseball Odyssey about me going to Cuba and giving things up. But Louis I saw about 2 weeks before he died because I knew he was in bad shape. And he goes over, he's on dialysis. He kicks my leg. He goes, Bill, I already kicked the bucket. And I go, well, why didn't you just follow the light and stuff? And he didn't answer that. And then about 5 days before he died, I went back and helped him when he came back from dialysis, get into the house with Maria, and I kissed him on the head and said goodbye. You know, I kissed Bill Buckner on the head. Every time I kiss a guy on the head, they're dead. So don't let me kiss you on the head.
Kiss of death.
And yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, and Bench, I just got to spend a whole weekend with Bench out in the Babe Ruth World Series, and he's got his new wife. They were a couple sitting on a bench in the hot springs holding hands, and Johnny looked good. He's smart. Probably him and Boone are the two smartest catchers I ever met, and I love them both.
We are talking with Bill Spaceman Lee, and Bill, you have one of the best nicknames of all time, Spaceman, which, you know, a lot of people would maybe try to run from that. You didn't. You embraced it. How did you come about getting that nickname?
Well, I really didn't like it. I signed Earth on it. I've been Earth since 96, 86. I signed it, and it's Earth 2025. But John Kennedy named me that during a game where we landed on the moon, second landing on the moon. I'm pitching for Louis Tiante, of all people. He gets knocked out in the first inning. He doesn't get an out. I get a double play. I strike out the pitcher. We're down 3 runs, I think, or 4 runs. And I go 3 for 4, fake bunt, double down the left field line by Brooks. We win 7-4. I go 8 2/3 innings, and we land on the moon. And John Kennedy can't get to his locker. We go into first place, and John Kennedy was yelling, "We got our own spaceman." I talked about the space program. I said, we didn't land on the moon. It was filmed in Arco, Idaho. And he goes, "We got our own spaceman right here." And he goes, and I went, so people say, "How did you get named the Spaceman?" And he had made a date with a divorcee on third base. He didn't even play. He found this girl during infield, and he made a date with her. And so I get named because of a horny third baseman.
Who didn't?
Who didn't? I'll tell you, every third baseman I know, with the exception of Petrozelli, was a jerk, you know. And what did Leo DeRocher said? God protects drunks and third basemen. Leo
Really?
DeRocher and Zimmer were very similar temperament. Zimmer was a gambler. Zimmer bet on everything. You know, it's a sad state of affairs when a guy like that gets to run a ball club. He ran the Cubs into the ground. He ran San Diego into the ground. What was it? It was Tom Seaver said he was the dumbest manager ever met, and he was right there. I'm telling you, he was as bad as they come.
So Scott, just you gave up how you got the Spaceman thing, which is fantastic, by the way. And I want to say I did meet Eduardo Perez for a number of years, talked to him, one of the nicest human beings ever. But on to that, you gave up a home run in Game 7 to Tony Perez on what is known as the Leafus pitch. How did you come
The
up and
only one he
develop that
hit.
pitch?
When he went to we went to Montreal, he was my first baseman. In spring training, I threw him 10 Ephuses in a row, and he didn't hit one of them out. It was just I hung it because it was out of a stretch. You never throw the ephus out of a stretch because you have to demonstrate, get on top, throw your hips back, and make it come into an arc where it's coming straight down. And I throw it in the bananas to this day, and I haven't given up a home run on it. And I can throw it right now in the big leagues, and I don't think they could hit it out. I mean, if I hung it, yes, but if I throw it perfectly and get it down right at the knees where it lands about 8 inches behind home plate, you can't hit it. You got to hit it the other way.
Well, I watched your movie Ephus, and those guys couldn't hit the Ephus either.
Those guys couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat.
Thank you, Tommy.
But just let me ask, how tough was it in that World Series to not have Jim Rice playing?
Oh, my gosh. We'll never know, will we? He may have gagged. He may have had the worst World Series anybody had since Ted Williams in 46. You never know. Some guys, Freddie Lynn struggled, I think, more than he should have. We should have won that World Series easily, I believe. Tiante and I were throwing good. Wise had a bad game, and then he came back. Cleveland hung a bunch of sliders, and he got hit pretty hard. But Moret was not used the right way. You look at Moret's record, his baseball card in 1976. He's 43-18 with the Red Sox. They misused that poor boy, and he went nuts. That's where I hold management accountable for ruining Roger Moret's career.
Speaking of that 75 World Series, I mean, great series, goes 7 games. The difference is, it's paper thin, the difference between those two teams. If you guys had played that World Series 10 times, do you think you guys would have split it 5 each? You were that close?
They won by one more run than we had. They had one more unearned run than we had, and that happened to be the 2-run homer.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get an error when on a double play, but there should have been an error called on that. That was flamboyant. It was devastating. And here's what it is. I was upset. You look at that. You think anybody in management would have come out and settled me down and told me to calm down? You got a runner at second. Now you got Perez up there, pitch him away. If he hits the ball to right field, you got a chance for an out. If he ain't going to hit it out of the ballpark on you, and you're only going to give up 1 run. But no, I hung the curveball and he crushed it, and I'm sorry for doing that, but I had a lot of help.
But even though you guys lost the series, the greatest moment from that series, and maybe perhaps the greatest moment in World Series history, or one of them, was the Carlton Fisk homer. Describe that as it happened and your reaction to what you saw.
Oh, my God. He took a ball down and in, and he didn't top-hand it. He bottom-handed, sliced it right down the line, hit the foul pole. George Foster catches the ball behind his back one-handed, kept the ball, and ended up paying his tax debt to the state of Connecticut with the ball when he sold it. The stuff that people don't know and don't remember, that's the problem. The reason I get in trouble is my brain is a steel trap.
Yeah, that has gotten you in trouble. Let me ask you this. I mean, he hits the home run, Bill, and while you're going crazy and excited, is part of you thinking, I'm pitching tomorrow?
Never thought about it. I was, I get to play again, one more game. It's like Pete Rose. I was excited. You know, I went out there and I had good stuff. You know, I think I had better stuff because I had hurt my arm. The reason I only won 17 games, I could have won. If you look at my 3 wins, I mean, I was 0-4 in September of 75. I think I was. And, you know, I was tired. I needed a rest. I hyperextended my elbow swinging the bat, and they took me out. I didn't throw for probably 21 days, and I was strong. And I looked at that. When I needed a little extra to Joe Morgan, I could throw it by him, you know, and I had pretty much pinpoint control. But, you know, I had good stuff. I just had bad luck.
What was your relationship like with Fisk? I know you threw to him quite a bit.
We hated each other. We didn't say it to each other, but we really were different. The funny thing is, his family was raised on the New Hampshire side of the river, of the Connecticut River, and my family had farms on the other side of the river back in the 1700s. So basically, our family were swimming and sleeping together for 5 generations, probably.
Well, apparently he didn't like that.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, we looked alike too. I mean, it was amazing. We got along fine. You know, Gary Peters was my roommate, and I'll tell you, but Fisk and I, we go out dancing. Jim Cotton and I were best friends. He and I used to dance in Minnesota because the girls wouldn't. They'll dance together, and the boys didn't like to dance. So Cotton and I, after a game, we'd dance together, and we end up with the pick of the litter.
So on November 7th, 2008, that's also the day you get inducted into the Red Sox Hall of Fame.
Oh my
What
God.
did that mean to you?
I was upset. You know, I said if I wanted them, if I was going to go in, I want to go in face down. They can kiss my ass. They got rid of me. They treated it poorly, and they put Bruce Hirsch in before me. I had more wins than him. I had a 1 point lower ERA. I was the labor guy. I was the guy during the strikes, the lockouts, and everything. And I got released or traded by the Red Sox. And after the 81 strike, I'm the player rep in the National League. And with Steve Rogers, and I'm dean of the American League, and I hit 348 in 79, and I'm in 81. I hit 348, had a 2.75 ERA, and got released. No one picked me up. I could have thrown for another 10 years. I could have been Satchel Paige, and I was. I won a pro game at 63 with Brockton, 65 with San Rafael, and in 67, I get traded to the Sonoma Stompers in the California League, and I go 5 2/3 innings and win that game. So I won 4 pro games in a row in my 60s.
Right, I was about to ask you that. When you were 63, didn't you become like the oldest person to win a professional game?
Yeah, and I only went like 5 2/3. But then I go to San Rafael, and I'm playing in Maui. I beat a guy that pitched for the California Angels or the year before, and I went 1 for 4 off of him, and I beat him 7-3, I think. I went 9 at my park at Alberts Field in San Rafael with 3 of my ex-girlfriends there. It was a freaking great game.
But you know, I saw something really nice, Bill. You went back and played in Fenway with the Bananas, and it seems like it didn't seem like it was. The fans loved you. How did it feel to get that standing ovation and all the cheers? They remembered you and loved you.
I just, you know, it was a great way to retire. I took off my uniform and stuff, but then I played senior ball summer this year at 77 years. Well, I'm 78. In MSBL in Roy Hobbs, because I'm born on December 28th. So, you know, I'm like a racehorse. On January 1st, I turn 1. And
Well, let me ask you, why did you slam your jersey and your undershirt on the mound?
They told me to. They wanted me to. They wanted me to do it. I didn't do it at first. In fact, I've got a picture of me and Billy Leroy walking off with my arm over his shoulder. I'm going to make 10 copies of it today and send one to my catcher, Billy Leroy. And we're on the field. At the party animals are out. There's not one person on the field other Banana. He and I are walking off like we're just the last two people on earth at Fenway Park to a standing ovation. And it doesn't get any better than that, I'll tell you that.
How did it make you feel inside with everything you had been through with Boston?
Oh, it's amazing. Well, there's a great new book out by Jane Levy called Make Me Commissioner. And she's chapter 5 I read, and chapter 6, it's about me and the Savannah Bananas, and it's hilarious. So it's to be able to play for 5 years with your grandchildren on the field. It's they all adopted me. I adopted them. We have a great relationship, and and I tell them, I used to catch the ball behind my back running to first in the outfield. I caught it all the time. I hit pop flies to myself. I caught them behind my back. I caught them between my legs, behind my back, because I had a bad right knee, and I had to do that. So I've always been a banana, and I got to play for the Bananas, but I've also been a party animal all my life, too.
But
Which I like.
I love the Bananas. But back in August 22nd, I'm watching the game. I'm thinking how great this is. I hope one day I get to go. But you suffer a cardiac episode on the field. Tell me about that. What went on? What was going on with you? How were you? How did all this go about?
Wow. I got Jane Levy's book right here, and it's called The Bananas. And let's see if I can open it up to that chapter, The Bananas. It says, the last time Bill Lee had been in his Savannah uniform, he was dead. As in not breathing, unresponsive, dead. Is that a great way to start a chapter?
Well, it could be.
Especially if you get to read it.
Oh, God, you got to get her book just for that. That's freaking hilarious, yeah. I told her, what a great segue. Making God laugh, and then having me killed off in the next chapter.
Well, what happened, Bill? What happened? And how are you doing?
I don't know. They don't know. And no one knows. It was a tough day. I'd lost my cell phone. We found it about 1,800 miles later when I changed the oil. It was lodged by the windshield wipers on a Prius down there. It was still there. It didn't work. We found it out during an oil change. And I got in a fight with my wife. I had a shitty haircut. And it was just a high humidity, electrical storm. There were 2 heart attacks at the same time. Me and a lady had them. But it was first responders night. So I was in the bullpen, and all the first responders in the trucks were right there. I had 6 people on me before I hit the ground almost.
Good timing. Good timing.
Good timing. That's it. And the other thing was the Dr. Newton's electrocardiology, Cleveland Institute. He gets me in the morning and he says, we've done all the tests and everything else. You don't have no damage to your heart, but you had an incident where your heart was butterfly effect, went up to 300 beats a minute. And all of a sudden it shut down. You lost all blood to your head and you dropped dead. He said,
Wow.
but you had a pulse and everything, and we can't find a blockage. They did a stress test. They did everything. But then I dropped dead again in Indianapolis the following year. Same incident, really hard, 8th inning. And I go, I just don't want to pitch the 8th inning. I got to start. and they didn't agree with that. And I basically got released. And then, but then I got a girl. You can go online. This is amazing. You can go online, WMUR Channel 9 out of Manchester, and there's a thing by Dartmouth Hitchcock Hospital on Saving Bill Lee, and it's a 20-minute documentary on how Hannah Shadry. Yeah, I had 2 procedures that failed. I had a blockage in my circumflex artery. They finally found out they couldn't see it. They didn't know it was there. It's where your coronary artery, one of your coronary arteries, and your circumflex behind your heart. And I'm laying on the table in Worcester, and this guy named Fisher is operating on me, and it's Labor Day Friday. It's 4:30, bad time for a surgery procedure, and they've got me going up through my groin, and I'm watching him, and I'm laying there, and he's having trouble, and I can see I'm starting to burn. I can feel hot in the felt heat in my heart, or just felt uncomfortable. And I said, "You're right-handed." He goes, "Yeah." He goes, under his mask. I said, "You can't do this. You have to be a left-hander to get up on top like that, and you have to have a breaking ball, and you got to come down at a 45-degree angle to get into that artery." And I said, and the only person here that can do that is laying on the table. That's me. And he stopped, and he left, and he walked out. They closed me up, and and I went to Mass General. They said they could do it. They had a right-hander. He couldn't do it. I go to Dartmouth Hitchcock, Dr. Min, who was partner with Dr. Newton at the Cleveland Institute. He's the head of electrocardiology at Dartmouth Hitchcock. He says, "Bill, I think we got the answer." And it was the answer. It was a little woman from Lahore, Pakistan, named Hannah Shadri, and she saved my life. Now you know the rest of the story.
Wow.
Pretty neat, huh?
Absolutely.
Well, I had in 2016, I went to the hospital, and I had apparently blockage in one of my arteries, and they did, an angiogram on me, and I felt that burning in my heart at the beginning when they were doing the procedure like you did, and I thought, oh, this is it. And then it subsided, it was gone, and I never had felt that again. But
You blew it out.
do you believe that there's always a plan? I don't know, with God, whatever you believe in, it's either your time or it's not your time.
Well, it was my time if technology hadn't caught up to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would not have been alive if they didn't have a defibrillator.
That's true.
I don't think. But then again, Billy Leroy is my catcher, but it was Matt Wolf, who's a paramedic and a first responder he was catching me in the bullpen at the time, and he said I had a pulse very faintly, and I was recovering on my own, I think. I'm pretty sure I would have recovered on my own after the first one. But when your heart goes up to that, when you have a blockage like that, you get the pain and stuff. I didn't get that. I got the electro thing where your heart goes really fast to blow it out. But my grandfather died very early, and I believe he died of the same thing I did, because my father didn't have that. I had it. My grandfather, I think it skips a generation, but we all inherit genes from relatives that we never knew.
Right.
Bill, I'm gonna say I feel guilty. When that happened, they had you on the gurney, and I thought, oh, this is part of the Bananas Act. He's gonna get back up and run to the mound. Sorry.
Yeah.
I really did.
There was not pain. I didn't have any pain. I never had a burning sensation except during the procedure.
Right. That's when I had it too. The only time I had it was during the procedure, that burning feeling.
Yeah. When they finished, they were celebrating. They were jumping up and down, and it was December 1st when they got the blockage and they got the stent in me, and they were celebrating, but they forgot that I was still on the table and stuff like that, and I almost bled to death because they had to do compressions on my femoral artery to keep me alive. It's life is funny, isn't it?
It is.
Sure
It
is.
is. Especially if you can laugh at it.
That's the key. Yeah, you just got to do it. Things are going bad, but like I said, I ran against Bill Clinton on the Parti Rhinoceros out of Quebec back in I think it was 88, I think, whenever he ran the second time. And damn, we never would have had Iraq. We never would have had all the problems we had. And, Putin would have kept his mouth shut and stayed out of Ukraine. And we probably would have had a two-state solution, and everything would be happy. But somehow the earth doesn't want us to be happy. I don't want her to. No, I think it's borders. I believe in physicians sans frontières. I do not believe in borders. I think borders are what makes enemies.
Well, that kind of leads me to my question. We're talking with Bill Spaceman Lee, and you got the nickname, and you're a lefty, which lefties are always weirdos, and you're quote unquote a flake, right? So all these things
Right.
kind of almost make you irrelevant, but really you're just an independent thinker. And 50 years ago, management didn't like that. Is there ever a time where you look back and go, boy, I should have shut my mouth at this point? But I think I know the answer to that.
No. Yes, you do know. You do know the answer to that. You may tell me where to sit, but you'll never tell me where to stand.
Mm.
And that's you may give me a seat, but I'm going to stand up. If I see an injustice, I'm going to speak out against it, and I'll do it for eternity. And I believe in a guy named Spinoza. He was a philosopher, a Jew that came from Portugal and went to the Netherlands, and then he was excommunicated by the rabbis. And I'm a Spinoza guy. I'm a Descartes guy. I'm a Voltaire guy. Immanuel Kant. I'm just right up there with my great-grandfather, who was, he was the head of, he's a doctor of philosophy. That's what he was at the University of Southern California, and I am the great-grandson of the doctor of philosophy, and I'm going to philosophize until I die.
It's interesting because you're there's almost like a heads and a tails to you, because you're an outside thinker. But after you win a College World Series at USC, you actually didn't you enter the U.S. Army Reserve during the Vietnam War?
I didn't. I was drafted. I had number 47, and I went to the AP station, passed the physical, and I was on a plane out of San Francisco, or even maybe Oakland, to Boston, and I was enlisted in the Army Reserve. The Red Sox put me in the reserve to keep me from going to Nam and letting me pitch and stuff. And I think that's highly illegal right now. Maybe not. I think maybe it's back with Trump. You never know.
But the other thing, and you were before we started taping, you were telling us, like, growing up, you had a lot of different jobs, and you also had a job as a locksmith, and that involved some very interesting stories.
Yeah, I had tons of stories there. Where Belushi died, I did all the buildings there. I did Autry's place. He had a motel. I did, Cookie Grab Your Comb. I learned to do locksmiths. I could pick locks, master padlocks. I was really good. I was like the Rockford file. Remember, he used to do all of his stuff down there down on the beach there between Paradise Cove.
At Paradise Cove, right?
Yeah. So I locked Bob Dylan and Neil Diamond out of their houses when their wives divorced them. Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, I remember Sarah Dillon. She was a Playmate pet. She was a knockout. And I'm going, that Bob Dylan must be the dumbest son of a bitch in the world.
Oh my God.
But Neil Young lived at the end of my block, and I got in a fight with him at my volleyball court where I lived on Sea Level Drive. He had an Oldsmobile 442, and he threw a big Budweiser in there. It was under the sand, and I cut my foot on it, wanted to kick the shit out of him. So, yeah.
You also have a conversation with Ted Williams about Ted Williams being a great hitter.
Oh, Ted was. This is the best. So Ted, he's in spring training or fantasy camp, and he's hitting on my second wife, Pam. I just gotten married to her, and then finally he's in the wheelchair, and then right at the end of his life, my present wife, Diana, we're at the Breakers Hotel with a bunch. I think it was Dominic DiMaggio, a bunch of his friends, Pesky, and a general for the Marine Corps. And he's hitting on my wife in a wheelchair. And I go, Ted, you are the greatest hitter that ever lived. You hit actually on my first wife in 1970 at the hotel when she was pregnant. You hit on my second wife, and now you're hitting on my third wife. You are the greatest hitter that ever lived.
So,
Love that.
The splendid Splinter.
yeah.
Yeah, he's the best. He was the best. He had the greatest eyesight. You know, he was the wingman for Glenn. You know, and I wrote a poem about it just the other day about Chuck Yeager. I said he was Chuck Yeager, a stick of Beeman's gum, 6 inches or 12 inches of broomstick. You know, you weren't spamming a can. You were the greatest. You were the right stuff, and I was the wrong stuff.
Fire questions fly, lightning strikes as answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air. Trivia time, truth and dare.
I had one question set up, but I actually got another one because you mentioned that your brother was the stunt double for Kurt Russell in a movie.
Yes, he was in The World's Greatest Athlete, Disney.
Okay, so true or false? Kurt Russell actually played professional baseball.
True.
Yep. Yep. He was a member of the Angels.
I think that team the Bastards of something Bastards of baseball. He was on that team.
But he was in the Angels minor league system too. He was an infielder.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he had some injury that kind of derailed his career. He had I think speed. He wasn't a big power hitter, but he was a contact hitter with speed. And his dad owned the Portland Mavericks baseball team.
Yeah, he did the Bastards of baseball, and I'm in that one where Ben Affleck robs Fenway Park. I'm in that scene where he's got the machine gun shooting up jerseys.
Town, yeah, the town.
Well, he and Ben Affleck and we hung out together, and Matt Damon's father and I were golf partners a lot. So I never met Matt, but I met Ben. And, yeah, I just love Boston movies like that. They're just something about the accent and everything. And it's just it's the greatest sports town I'll ever live in, I'll tell you that. I just love the Bruins, love the Celtics. It's just, and the Patriots, you know, Brady's a San Francisco boy. Think about it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Now, I know one more. I know before you had talked a little bit about your relationship with Don Zimmer. Did you get a chance to make up with him before he passed?
Kind of. I did with Haywood Sullivan. Here's the great thing. Haywood Sullivan was Satchel Paige's manager 60 years ago today. And Haywood Sullivan's the guy who got rid of me and traded me, to Montreal. It was Buddy LaRue, Haywood Sullivan, Dick O'Connell was gone, and Zimmer and them got together, and he was a half-ass catcher from Montgomery, Alabama, and not a really nice guy. I patched it up with him, and his son appreciated that. And Zimmer, I saw him with my bat company. I'm selling bats down in Tampa at spring training, and he comes by in his golf cart, and he almost falls down, and I kind of help him get back. I know who you are. And he leaves and goes away, and I kind of consider that, he was going to fall out of his golf cart. I think that was before Pedro threw him to the ground. I don't know, but, But, hey, Zimmer, everybody from Cincinnati should be hung by the neck until dead. You know who said that?
Who?
The President of the United States that was the General, Ulysses
Oh.
S. Grant.
Wow.
He said that. He said, every time we leave Cincinnati, they go across the river in Covington and trade with the rebels.
Who knew? See?
You got to make money. Cincinnati, Procter and Gamble. Think about it.
Yeah.
Always a history lesson here on Past Our Prime. One of the true characters of the game, an original through and through, revered throughout New England, despite being a California fag. I've never met someone from around these parts that doesn't love Bill, the Spaceman Lee. You can count us three in that category. Thanks, Bill, for joining us today. Really, really enjoyed it.
Fabulous show. I appreciate you letting me rant and rave like I do, and it hasn't stopped raining, but that ain't gonna keep me. I'm gonna go out and dance my ass off today and have a few beers. Thanks for having me, boys.
Thank you
for being Bill.
on.
Thank you.
Bill Lee, the Spaceman, on the Past Our Prime podcast. Okay, what's next? The Sooners are the better. Oklahoma coach Barry Switzer, undefeated yet often criticized for not winning big enough, guided his Sooners to a 24-17 victory over rival Texas in the Cotton Bowl. The game, played in brutal heat before 72,000 fans, highlighted both Oklahoma's resilience and defensive strength, with stars like Leroy Selman holding Texas far below its offensive range and average. We talked last year with Joe Washington, and his dad was a football coach, and Joe and his brother could do everything on a football field. And in this game, Mark, he had a crucial play that had nothing to do with running the ball.
Yeah, so this is amazing. First of all, Joe Washington, a great runner, could catch the ball out of the backfield and could return punts. Okay, so that's three facets of the game. Nobody realized he had a fourth facet. So think about this. It's a 7-point lead for Oklahoma. There's 2.5 minutes to go in the game. Oklahoma is a 3rd and 8 at their own 10-yard line with 2.5 minutes to go. So most likely you're going to punt the ball. Texas is going to get it around midfield and have a chance to tie the game or win the game. So what do they do in the third down play? They quick snap it to Joe Washington. And what does he do? He doesn't run. He doesn't throw. He quick kicks the ball. And it wasn't just a good quick kick. The ball went 76 yards. It must have gotten a hell of a roll. So the ball went from the Oklahoma 10 to the Texas 14. And now all of a sudden Texas has to go, 86 yards in order to tie or win the game. And that changed the whole momentum. And that's how Oklahoma was able to win by 7 points.
And, keep in mind that these teams back then were run heavy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, 3rd and 8 back then, they didn't throw. They were not going to throw from the 10-yard line. And same thing, if you have Earl Campbell and you get the ball at the 50, you can utilize Earl Campbell in that situation. At the 14, maybe not as much. So, speaking of Bill Earl Campbell, not a great game for the freshman sensation. Tell me about his day, and tell me about their quarterback, Marty Akins.
Sure. Campbell rushed for 23 times for 95 yards. He had 1 touchdown, but it was 1 lost crucial fumble in the third quarter that led to Washington's 9-yard touchdown run. Oklahoma would take a 17-7 lead and basically weren't going to be caught after that once they got to the 24, because it winning by 24-17. But Texas, their quarterback was named Marty Akins. Marty Akins was one of the greatest high school athletes in Texas ever. He was also one of the toughest guys, it appeared, ever. After the Oklahoma game, he plays against TCU, where he tears his anterior cruciate ligament. But not to be done yet. 2 weeks later, after they doubted he would ever play, he came back with his knee heavily braced and started against Texas A&M. But he was injured on the first offensive play, out for the game. So you're expecting him, no, he's going to get his knee fixed. He's out for the year. Not so fast. In the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl, still love that bowl name, he was back in the lineup, playing on one leg, and led his team to a 38-21 come-from-behind win over Colorado. He had a torn anterior cruciate ligament in his right knee.
Wow.
Oof.
That is, didn't Neighbors of the Giants tear his ACL? He didn't come back in the game because normally most human beings are done for the year once they tear that.
Yeah.
That's just, when I read that, I thought, oh my golly, to come back 2 weeks later and then to get hurt and then come back again in a bowl game and lead your team to a win. Unbelievable.
Right. And not just like as a figurehead, not like a Willis Reed type thing where he played 5 minutes. I mean, he played very well. In fact, his performance in the bowl game contributed to his selection as a first-team All-American by the Football Writers Association, making him the only wishbone quarterback in college football history to receive this honor. So quite a player and quite the DNA in that family, Billy. He is the uncle of
Drew Brees.
Wow. Yeah.
Man.
Not too bad.
Did he do anything in the NFL?
Yeah, he had an okay career. I mean, the Chargers didn't like him, but
hey, I want to say one last thing about the Oklahoma-Texas series, which made it so unique. The games were never played in Norman or in Austin. They were always played at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, and then I guess later at Cowboy Stadium. But that made it so unique. Even though I guess Dallas is closer to Austin than it is to Norman, still it just gave it a little more of that neutral feel to it.
Right. Yeah. And I just want to say that, when we talk rivalries, we almost always talk Red Sox, Yankees, Dodgers, Giants, Notre Dame, SC, that kind of stuff. For some
Ohio State,
reason,
Michigan.
Ohio State, Michigan, you're right. For some reason, this one doesn't get brought up all that often. And they hate each other. I mean, let's just put it simply. This rivalry is right up there with all the other ones, and the hatred they have for each other is unmatched, Billy.
Yeah, I lived in Wichita Falls, which was called Texoma because it was Texas right near the border of Oklahoma. And I worked at a radio station. So when they said, "Who you pulling for this weekend?" It used to be called the Red River Rivalry or the Red River Shootout. They took that away. Um, and I would always ask, who you pulling for? They go, "I'm Oklahoma, man." So I'd be Oklahoma. Then I meet someone else. I go, "Who you pulling for?" Texas. Oh yeah, go Texas. I mean, they were they were angry.
Yeah, they were.
I did a remote radio station during that game or later in the night, and people had their Texas hats on. All they want to do is keep fighting me. I said, I don't play for the teams. Guy kept walking about, you bumped into me. I said, I'm standing over there. You walked over to me. Hey, you want to go right now? I'm like, no, just go back to your game, man.
Oh,
And
I
they
want to go right
want
now.
to hit and beat up everybody. They're very upset during that game.
Yeah. Yeah. Barry Switzer is now 26-0-1 as head coach. He joked about the impossible expectations of Sooner fans, quipping, if Da Vinci were their head artist, they would demand that the Mona Lisa's smile be changed to a toothy grin. So he could not, even though they're about to win their second straight national championship, they were critical of Mr. Coach Switzer. Let's talk a little NFL and Kenny Anderson and the Cincinnati Bengals, who are off to an exceptional start this season, winning their first 4 games, thanks in large part to one of the more underrated players and QBs in the NFL from the 70s. And Mark, he had a head coach by the name of Paul Brown, who had quite a career himself.
He sure did. And you ever wonder where the Cleveland Browns got their name? Look at Paul Brown. They were named. There was a contest. He was the founder and coach of the Cleveland Browns from 1946 to 62, and they had a contest what they should name the team. And they said, "Well, it's Paul Brown's teams. Let's call it the Browns." So that's how the Cleveland Browns got their name. If he had been Joe White, he might have been the Cleveland Whites. If he had been Joe Red, the Cleveland Reds, who knows? But yeah, and then he took over in Cincinnati, so he was always an Ohio guy.
Right.
But yeah, that's a good trivia question, huh? How did the Cleveland Browns get their name?
And Billy, he had a pretty good quarterback coach, didn't he?
Yeah, Bill Walsh, not a bad guy helping you out. And unfortunately, took some of his information when he went to the 49ers because they ended up beating the Bengals in the Super Bowl back in 1981. Anderson being part of that team with the Bengals.
Yeah, Kenny Anderson was a good quarterback.
He wasn't. A lot of people think he should be in the Hall of Fame. There's still people out there saying, no, I think he passed for, 27,000 yards, something like that, 37,000. Oh, no, close to 33,000 yards and 197 touchdowns. Plus, he was MVP in 81 with Montana finishing second.
Anderson was Mr. Bengal. He played from 71 to 86 for the Bengals and then was a coach for the Bengals. So he was. And you look at the picture there, this is before they got those tiger stripes on the helmet.
Yeah.
It started in the early 80s. They had just the plain orange helmets and the black jerseys. That was the classic Bengals for me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. When we had the guys from the Terrible Podcast on, I was stunned to hear that this Bengals team went 11-3 in 75, and 2 of those losses were to the Steelers. So they were 11-1 against everyone else. That's a good football team. They just happened to be in the wrong division.
Yeah, and they lost to the Raiders in the playoffs.
They did in a very close one.
Yep.
Very
Was
close.
it 31-28? Am I wrong on that?
Correct. Let's talk a little golf. It was a memorable day at the Ohio Woods near Columbus, where golf legend Jack Nicklaus hosted an extraordinary 18-hole game at his newly designed Muirfield Village course, joined by fellow golfing greats Lee Trevino, Tom Weiskopf, and Johnny Miller. Basically, it was the first Skins game. The official first one wasn't until 1983, but this was the prelude to that. 8 years prior, and they were trying to get some publicity for Nicklaus's course, and this is what they came up with. The event was dubbed a cat game, not a formal tournament, but a lively filmed spectacle with $1,000 prize per hole. So I looked up. Do you know what the biggest skin ever was?
50,000.
I think Greg Norman, I want to say in '99 or something, won an $850,000 skin.
Oh.
And back then, these are $1,000.
Wow.
So funny. That's a 24-year gap between 75 and 99. So good stuff. Now we got talk a little bit of hockey. We haven't done that in a while, but the 1975 hockey season dropped the puck with more plot twist than a season's worth of All My Children or Mark Ryan's Hope, right? Nolan Ryan.
That's right. Nolan Ryan.
Lot of good stuff. Bobby Orr was hobbling around in plaster. 47-year-old Gordie Howe was both right wing and team president, and poor Marcel Dion found himself traded to LA, where he mistook Grauman's Chinese theater for, well, we'll get to that in a little bit. But meanwhile, Billy, the NHL raised ticket prices, lost its contract. Salaries are down 10%. In 1975, the average player makes $70,000, and owners are doing everything they can to save money.
Yeah, they are. It's comes to travel. We know that most of the all the players nowadays travel in first class. Oh no, not 1975. They are traveling almost exclusively in the coach compartment of regularly scheduled flights on game days. And then they're being charged $7 for hockey sticks, and they like to give us souvenirs. What's the NHL doing?
Right. $7 for a souvenir stick that they were handing out, and they're like, nope, we're charging you for that.
But do you have to sit in the middle seat between the two big fellas?
Right.
Okay, sorry, I'm Marcel Dion. Oh, you're in a 42B. But those guys, yeah. What do you do?
Yeah, right. Enter Jack Kent Cooke. The flashy owner had just bought Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and decided Dion was next on his shopping list. Despite Detroit calling him selfish, Dion came to LA with 366 points in 4 seasons and a Lady Bing trophy. Billy, Dion and his agent kind of forced this deal to LA, and it turned out to be a pretty good one for the Kings.
Yeah, he just didn't like it in Detroit because they seemed to change general managers, coaches, and operational policies all the time. They actually suspended Dion after a flare-up with coaches in residence twice, and then they quickly reinstated him when they realized, he scores a lot of points. But yeah, the Kings, it's the best deal that the Kings have ever done. Ever done. That includes Wayne Gretzky. Because basically you give up Dion and Bart Crashley, which I know Mark knows a ton about, for Dan Maloney, Terry Harper, and a future draft choice. And Dion went on to, like Scott said, Lady Bing winner, 8 times more than 100 points. He was 5'7.5". That makes me happy. He was, and in 26 years, he only missed 26 games.
Wow.
That is that right there. You take a Sizen, you take the NHL back in 1975, which was a much rougher league to be in. Yeah. And he made it and was just an amazing player and a great representative, not just for the organization, but for Kings fans. I loved Marcel Dion. He was just amazing.
Well, he was tough, and he was not a big guy, but he came from a big family. His dad was big, his sisters were big. So that just means that he was tough, but in a smaller stature, but he was definitely tough. Mark, he gets to LA and he does not know much about it and its surroundings, like Hollywood or basically anything about Southern California.
Yeah, they gave him a celebrity test and they asked him, so what's the Polo Lounge? He says, maybe a place where they rest polo horses. Or they asked him, what's Grauman's Chinese Theater? where they show Chinese porn films. What's 77 Sunset Strip? Oh yeah, I heard of that. It's a massage parlor. So, he
Yeah.
did say though, he did watch American TV. He watched Fonzie on Happy Days, like Carol Burnett, but didn't know that part.
No, nope. I'm guessing, despite him being a fixture in LA for gosh knows how long, that he probably never gravitated to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Well, he kept scoring over 100 points, so he must have stayed out of all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Billy, what else jumped out at you from this preview issue of the NHL? Tell me a little bit about Brian Trottier and those Islanders.
Well, they added a guy, that Brent Trottier, 20 years old. He scored 95 points, then went on to score like 100 points 5 straight years and helped lead the Islanders to 4 straight Stanley Cups. But I thought it was interesting that Buffalo, which made the Stanley Cup final, they decided to break up the French connection line, which is Gilbert Perreault, Rick Martin, and Rene Robert. They had only scored 131 goals last year combined. That's good. And then Ken Dryden, sadly, who won his second straight Vezina in 75 and would go on to win the next two. So he won basically 4 in a row. He passed away in September of 2025. We tried really hard to get him as a guest on our show.
We did. And there's a happy ending to that. We couldn't get him, and that's fine. We ended up getting Mike Eruzione.
That's right. That's
who,
right.
They worked together.
We worked with, yeah.
They worked together, and that was one of our greatest shows. And yeah, two Hall of Fame goaltenders have both passed away in the last month. We mentioned Bernie Perrant last week, and Ken Dryden as well. So
yeah, and you talk about it that Dryden. Then they won 2 Stanley Cups, and this was their going for their third one. Am I right, or is this the second one? I think this would be the third one. That Perrant injured his back, and they might have won a third one.
That's right. Yeah,
he was so dominant back in that day that if he doesn't hurt his back and pretty much miss the entire season, they could have won 3 in a row. Bernie Perrant was just an amazing, underrated goalie.
Yep. Just like in the WFL, the WHA has success, has some name recognition, and is struggling to survive. The WHA might not have matched the NHL's tradition, but with legends like Howe and Hull carrying the banner, it was much more than just a sideshow. But Gordie Howe is now 47, and they make him president of the Houston Aeros. And his first decision is a really good one as executive. It's him to extend himself into his 28th season on the ice. So Gordie Howe and the WHA, it just is kind of shocking. I get maybe these goals of all these other leagues were just to eventually morph into the bigger league. But the WHA, I mean, you guys both talk about it glowingly.
Oh yeah, it had. I mean, forget the NHL guys. I mentioned it off air. They had Ulf Nilsson and Anders Hedberg with Winnipeg. Those guys were scoring machines, and they added Kent Nilsson, who went on to an amazing career with Calgary. There were guys in the WHA that were just Robbie Fatorik, who played well in NHL, then became the Kings coach. They had some amazing players. It was just so much fun. But the thing with Howe, that year when he came back at 47, he finished with 102 points and would play another 4 years. And the weirdest thing I found, that Gordie Howe only scored over 100 points once in his NHL career at the age of 40.
Really?
Yeah, you never know that. He just, racked up points. Yeah.
I just love the teams in the WHA,
Yeah.
Teams, or the Indianapolis Racers.
Isn't Wayne Gretzky's first team?
Yeah, isn't that great?
Yes.
It says Indianapolis more to me than racing. Yeah. So
and
racing.
Houston Aeros, I just liked that name.
Yeah.
Part 3 of Babe, and if you don't know by now, Babe Didrikson was basically the Swiss Army knife of athletics. If the knife also cracked jokes, won Olympic gold medals, and terrified golf society ladies by refusing to wear a girdle. She excelled in just about everything: basketball, track and field, swimming, bowling, you name it. But it was golf that made her famous, even though she wasn't the best of her era. Billy, someone was actually better than her, despite the fact that at one point she won like 17 tournaments in a row.
It was a Briton. It was Joyce Weathered, who won the British Amateur 4 times in the 20s, and then she turned professional for a brief, profitable U.S. tour in the mid-30s, but she got married and stepped away from golf. But she was better than Babe Dietrichson.
Hard to believe.
I said, George, Weather. Is that how would you pronounce it? Was it Weathered or Weathered?
I have no idea.
Yeah, Weathered.
I was on a first name basis with her. I just called her Joyce.
Yeah, I figured. It's that's and Mark probably lived with her for a while.
Texas high society did know what to do with a poor girl from Beaumont who beat their daughters and then laughed about it. So the USGA solved this problem by banning her from amateur golf. Mark, what was Babe's response when she was banned from amateur golf?
She should go to the pros. She contacted some of her friends, R.I. and Bertha Bowen of Fort Worth. They had money. They created their own little professional golf tournament, so she could play there. But I mean, they were such snobs. There was one of her competitions made some reference to that. They don't want to have this truck driver in their, in their golf circuit. She's not a lady. She's a truck driver,
She was a little rough around the edges, as they like to say, but she co-founds the LPGA. But as we've mentioned in the first two times we talked about her, ultimately her story ends too soon. She dies of, what was it, colon cancer?
Yeah, cancer.
At the age of 45 in 1956. Probably golf's first female superstar, and arguably the greatest female athlete ever, Babe Dietrichson. So she was something. Hey, let's talk a little bit, not really auto racing, but auto crashing. This was every 8-year-old boy's dream show. And for drivers like Mark, this is road rage in a can. It's televised. We're talking the first ever demolition derby. A former dishwasher and gas station attendant, Larry Mendelson, realized in 1958 when he crashed through a fence and the crowd went nuts that people didn't care about the race. They liked the crashing. So what did he do?
Created a circuit, created a competition, created demolition derby.
Something that little Billy liked a lot.
So the way I drive, I think I would have been great at this. I think I would have been really good at this.
Well, they said most demolition derby drivers claim they compete to relieve the frustrations of driving in everyday traffic. Mark, that could be you.
Could absolutely be me.
Wow. Yeah, this Mendelson guy buys a racetrack in Islip, New York by borrowing $1,000. And within a couple years, 25 million people are watching it on TV. And, it's both men and women, Billy. And the men make $1,500 if they win. And the women, they make what?
$100. Damn. Honestly, you can't see the sexism in that.
No. 15 to
Sally broke her leg, but she got $100.
Yeah. Now
Stop
go
complaining.
make me dinner.
And she probably has to go home and buy groceries.
Right.
The guy's out at the track.
Do you guys remember the stupid little toy that was the demolition derby back in the day, where you'd pull this zip car and the cars would crash into each other and then you'd have to put them back together? And
vaguely.
Oh, it was about as bad as the Elvis Evel Knievel jumping one.
I love that Evel Knievel jumping one.
Never worked.
It never did, but I still loved it.
Yeah. College football, and we've talked about this kid before, Houston McTerra, an 18-year-old speed demon from Baker, Florida. College football coaches are doing everything they can to get him to get on the football field like Bear Bryant, but this kid's looking to be a track star, and they can't convince him to become a football player. So what do they do, Mark?
Well, he basically, just to know how good of a football player he was only 5'8", 160 pounds, but he rushed his junior year for 1,380 yards on just 96 carries. That's almost 14 and a half yards per carry. He scored 16 touchdowns. So, he could have been a really good scat back football player. But, he wants to stay healthy. His goal is the 76 Olympics, and he doesn't want to, mess that up. So he basically, decides that track is more important than football.
Yeah, and you just picture, 14 yards per carry. What that means is if he got to the edge, he was gone.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, too funny. Too funny. Yeah. And I think he gets hurt before the 76 Olympics, I
Yeah.
think. Right?
Yep.
I think so.
Hamstring or something like that. Poor kid. Elsewhere on the college gridiron, for once, Mark, no Bruins talk. Everything okay?
Well, I figured I could talk about John Shard. He did get complimented big time in this article, but I wanted to mention again something that you had mentioned the week before, and that is Chuck Muncy, who was a great running back at Cal. He ran for a 207 yards, scored 3 touchdowns as California beat Oregon 34-7. And think about how times have changed. Cal is a dominant team. Oregon is a stepping stone. You just walk over them. And now it's like the reverse. Oregon's the powerhouse. Cal is kind of like football's really not a top priority there.
Yep.
And it's a Muncie was that wore the glasses.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, those goggles.
yeah.
Yeah. I think first went to the Saints, I want to say.
Yeah, I think you're
Yep.
right. Yeah, I remember him with the
That's where he
Saints.
was started with.
Yeah. And then had a good
Chargers.
time with the Chargers. Very good football player. The pace is familiar. You got something on this guy, I know. Michael Dokes is 17 years old and possibly the fastest rising star in amateur heavyweight boxing, a high school senior from Akron. He claimed both Golden Gloves and AAU titles with a record of 94 wins and 99 fights. And not only can he fight, Billy, but he has confidence, to say the least.
He does. When he was 15, he said, "My hands are so fast, they can't catch them on film. I can hit a guy 3 times, and all he can think is somebody has snuck up behind him." He said he told Muhammad Ali, "I'll get you, old man, so you better get out of here while you can." Well, that 15-year-old didn't grow up to fight Ali or Frazier, but he did lose to Riddick Bowe, Razor Ruddock, Jerry Coetzee, and Evander Holyfield, but he did beat Randall Tex Cobb twice.
Who didn't?
Yeah, well,
Except in the
Jerry did
movies.
when he was
Oh, even in the movies, he would lose. But
well,
you know,
he was in what's the Jim Carrey one? The
he was in Raising Arizona.
I forgot. How do I forget that? It was a fun movie.
But Dokes was the WBA heavyweight champion in 1982 and 83. So he did hold one of the titles.
Randall Tex Cobb, I heard he was in Ace Ventura.
Yes, he was in a lot of movies.
He was. Jim Carrey couldn't take him.
And he usually plays the bad guy. Chuck Norris beat the crap out of him.
Didn't Randall Tex Cobb drive Howard Cosell out of boxing?
Yep. Because he wouldn't go down. He was getting beat up so badly in a fight.
Blood everywhere.
He wouldn't go down.
Yeah, like, was it Larry Holmes?
I think so.
I don't remember. The thing about Ali really is that Ali would talk the talk and then he would walk the walk. He backed it up.
Yeah.
And people hated him for it, but he could back it up. If you just say things like he was to Ali, which is kind of funny, haha, but also a little disrespectful, and then you don't have this great career, then it falls flat. So I would say that he was, and Billy, he's not with us anymore, is he?
No, he died a number of years ago. He was a young guy, but he died young.
That's too bad.
Because he was only 17 in this, and I think he died 2012, I think.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah.
Thanks. A dunk for the Apple. Diana Nyad, a 25-year-old marathon swimmer and Barnard College coach, stunned New York by swimming the 28 miles around Manhattan in 7 hours and 57 minutes, breaking a 48-year-old record by nearly an hour. And Billy, this was not her first try.
Well, her first try, she was pulled from the water after 8 hours due to a virus contracted from the river. They said there are dead birds and bodies and everything else out there.
Lovely.
Oh, that is so gross.
You get out. Sorry, I got a bird caught in my throat. I'm
Right.
going to die.
Yeah, she literally contracted something from the East River. It's just disgusting. So she says, the term in boxing, heart, well, in swimming, we say hungry, and that's how I feel, she explained. That hunger turned her into a media sensation, earning her TV spots, book offers, and the nickname Wonder Woman. There's a movie made about her not that long ago. She's been a commentator, I want to say, for ABC Sports for years and years. I don't know if she still is, but she was for a long time. Diana Nyad, one of the great marathon swimmers. But we sure have talked a lot about marathon swimmers.
Yeah.
Since,
Yeah, we have wonderful Lynn Cox.
Yep. And John Kinsella.
For the record, because somebody's got to keep score.
Bill.
Okay, William Sullivan, he acquired 84% of the New England Patriots for $10.6 million. And then I thought, wonder how much the Patriots are worth nowadays. Well, later on in 1988, Sullivan sold to Victor Kiam for $83 million. In 1992, Kiam sold to James Orthwein for $106 million. Then Robert Kraft bought from Orthwein for $183 million. That was in 94. Patriots today are worth $9 billion.
Wow.
6 Super Bowl wins and Tom Brady will help that, but
I'm saying from 183 to 9 billion, that's quite a good investment.
Oh my gosh, it's
But
just
damn.
it's unfathomable. It's just unfathomable, isn't it?
Yes, because it was changing ownership. That's 6 years from 88 to 94 that they changed ownership 3 times. And nowadays, I don't think you could pry, the Patriots off Kraft. It'll probably go to his family, I'm assuming, when he passes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, 100%. Yep. Hey, Mark, you got one big trade, ABA guy going to the NBA, right?
Well, actually, it's still the ABA.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So Dan Issel was a 4-time ABA All-Star, gets traded from the Baltimore Claws to the Denver Nuggets. And you're saying the Baltimore Claws, we had talked about this in an earlier show. They were the Memphis team, the Tams, the Sounds, and they were going to be moved to Baltimore. We call them the Claws, but they had financial trouble and they never ever played. Anyway, he goes to the Denver Nuggets, wins a couple more All-Stars in the ABA, then goes to the NBA. And, Dan Issel to me is like, I remember him as a Kentucky Colonel, but to me, he was also Denver Nugget, played at the Nuggets from 75 to 85, and then was coach of the Nuggets from 92 to 94, and then 99 to 2001.
When I think of Dan Issel, I think of our guest from a couple weeks ago, Ken McAfee, who became an oral surgeon because Dan Issel he looked like a hockey player. He had most of his teeth knocked out of his mouth, and he'd just do these big grins, and he had no teeth in there. But what a completely underrated, great all-time scorer. Could back then when the mid-range game meant something, there was nothing like that. What was it? That trio: Issel, Kiki Vandeweghe, and Alex English. Oh yes. My gosh, they were just unstoppable.
When was when was Fat Lever part of that? He was Denver, right?
Yeah, maybe a little.
It was an Arizona State Sun Devil.
Maybe it was a little later than that.
Just a little later than that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Before the fame, there was the flame. Faces in the crowd.
Okay, well, I'm going to do Carol Cook. She's a junior at Iowa State. She set a U.S. women's record of 34:49 for the 10,000-meter run in an AAU meet in Los Angeles. She plays second at the running on a St. Louis track this summer. Cook finished second nationally in an hour, covering 10 miles and 205 yards. So you wonder what happened to Cook, this Iowa State legend. Well, she's in the Iowa State Hall of Fame. She was a big-time star there in women's track and field and cross country, even though she had to battle lots of injuries. She transferred actually from Southwest Missouri State to go to Iowa State. The head coach there, Chris Murray, really elevated her. 76, she won the Big 8 conference title in cross country. She finished second at the AIAW National Championships. So St. Louis native, she did really well. And she actually ran in the New York City Marathon in 1981 and placed 12th.
Oh, wow. That's something.
Yeah.
Billy.
Okay, it's about Michael Sanchez. He's 8 years old. He was the youngest member of his Manhattan Chess Club team. Later on, he would travel the world as a top-ranked junior chess player. That's got to be the end of him, right? No, no, no. He would go on to play soccer at the nation's top-ranked University of Virginia team in college before playing professionally in Zimbabwe while teaching high school math. That's got to be the end of him now, right? Oh, no, no. He's a serial entrepreneur who right now owns a company called Raptive, which, come on, hopefully he's listening and we can get a hold of him. It's an ad management and creator monetization platform that helps bloggers, YouTubers, and other digital creators with revenue through advertising, brand partnerships, and analytics. I don't know anyone doing stuff like that. That could be us. But the partner in this whole Raptive venture is none other than Andrew Shue of Melrose Place.
And the brother of Elizabeth Shue.
That's right.
Wow.
It's amazing how, you're 8 years old, you're an amazing athlete, and you pretty much, can you branch out to so many
Right.
different ways, so many different.
Yeah. And maybe instead of next week, Mark doing an ad on cigarettes, we could have Mark get in touch with this guy and make us a bunch of money.
Exactly.
There you
Say,
go.
hey, at least listen to our show and give us the opportunity. We got great guests. We have Mark, and that should sell it. Who gets naked?
Oh, that'll get him right away.
Always.
It might. You
Always.
never know. You never know.
Nothing from the 19th hole, so that's going to do it for us today. We cracked open the October 20th, 75 issue of Sports Illustrated. We talked a little World Series, even took a trip around Manhattan with Wonder Woman herself, Diana Nyad. So another week, another look back at sports history from 50 years ago. A big thank you to Bill Spaceman Lee for joining us and sharing his stories. He's one of a kind. We appreciate you taking the time, Bill. Until next time, thanks for listening. For Bill and for Mark, I'm Scott, and we are Past Our Prime.
Past Our Prime.
Yeah, there we go. Nice. That was not even rehearsed.